Most would consider the Pac-12 to be the second best conference in college football, and who knows, maybe better than that, maybe deeper than the SEC. And we step into conference play with Stanford and Washington, the Huskies trying to reach that elite level that Stanford has owned for the past 4 or 5 years. We bring in Don King of Last Word on Sports to talk some Stanford-Washington football. Hey, Don, how are you?
I'm great, Mark. Thanks. How are you today?
I'm doing just fine. Obviously, the Cardinal can't lose. They pretty much can't lose another game, even if they win head-to-head with Oregon. If they trip up somewhere else, then they cannot get to the Pac-12 championship game, most likely, unless, of course, the Ducks lose, and we've got a free-for-all with a bunch of 9-3 and 10-2 squads in the Pac-12. But most likely, somebody's going to break free and only lose one or no games, as has been the case most years in the Pac-12. So we've got a Stanford team. I don't want to say in any way that they're reeling. That's what was coming out of my mouth at one point, because they played very well, especially on defense against USC. Cody Kessler had the one long drive early in the game. Then after that, there wasn't a whole lot there, and just shot themselves in the foot repeatedly. So your take from USC, and project that forward to what we might see against the Huskies.
Yeah, the USC game was a tough watch for the Stanford faithful for a number of different reasons. You know, Sarkgate last year with the back and forth between Sarkisian and Shaw after the Washington game when he was head coach there last year. And then just, the long-standing California private school rivalry between USC and Stanford. It's just, behind Cal, it's probably the most persistent, quote-unquote rival Stanford's got. And it wasn't much of a rivalry for a long time, with USC just dominating. But in recent years, Stanford's kind of gotten the better of it. We Stanford alums have been quite proud of that, hoped to see that continue, and it just didn't. You'll see some incremental gray hairs on the top of my head from observing the red zone struggles that Stanford endured against USC a couple of weeks ago. That was kind of painful. But anytime you can reach the positive 35-yard line on 9 out of 9 drives and only score 10 points, bad things are likely to happen, and that was exactly the case there. Cannot let that happen. Got to get points up on the board.
And interesting to note, we see struggles like that from all sorts of schools across the country, especially with changing out personnel year in, year out. But with Stanford, experienced quarterback, experienced wide receivers, one of the better offensive linemen. I don't know about the entire offensive line. You'll have to fill me in there. But when you talk about Mr. Pete, one of the best in the business. So the struggles in the red zone kind of inexplicable in a sense, despite USC having some exceptional talent on defense.
Right. That's exactly right. It is inexplicable. It needs to be better. Coach Shaw owned that after the game. He kind of said the only problem in the red zone was me, or the biggest problem was me. And I think there's some validity to that. There were definitely some play calling hiccups. We can dispute the chop block call against the running back and blitz pickup. I personally didn't think that the rusher was engaged with an O-lineman before he was hit by the running back, but that's kind of neither here nor there. Again, that's just 1 out of the 9 trips inside the 35-yard line. You got to do better than 1 touchdown and 1 field goal out of the other 8 tries. So even if you take that off the board, it really was a self-inflicted wound kind of an issue. The O-line is still gelling, to be clear. There are more penalties early in the year this year from a holding and false start standpoint than there were in all of 2013. There's a lot less experience there, but there's a ton of talent. So all 5 of the starters are from that highly heralded 2012 offensive line class from a recruiting standpoint, and they're all really big. They've all been in Shannon Turley's strength and conditioning program for 2 years now. And they're all really good. And I think by mid to late season, you're going to see them gel and come together and be one of the best units in the conference for sure, if not in the nation. Just didn't come together as quickly as they needed to capture that USC contest.
Don, of course, Washington kind of lost in the abyss of Pac-12 football for quite a long time. Sark brought them back to respectability, getting them to bowl games, winning 7-8 games a year. Now, they would like to think that they're going to take a next step with Chris Peterson, start to challenge Oregon and Stanford in the North Division. Got this kid, Cyler Miles, threw 15 out of 20 against Illinois. I don't know that Illinois, we know the struggles of the Big Ten, and Illinois is near the bottom of that conference. Illinois is a pretty bad football team, and that game was at home against the Illini. They run roughshod over them, scored 30-some points in the first half, cruising to victory. So he comes in with a couple touchdowns, 66% passer. So what can you tell us about Washington specifically on offense?
Yeah, on offense, I like what Miles is doing a lot. Great dual threat recruit from a couple of years back. Haven't taken the time to check out any of their games, but some of the rush statistics in particular are very impressive. They've shown an ability to put up points, and they had to do so to outscore Stanford-Washington at home a couple of weeks ago. Which sounds like a bit of a laugher, but then you consider that Stanford-Washington is one of the very best teams in the football championship subdivision. So it's a little more understandable, but still, you cannot give up 52 points to anybody in your home stadium. That's, you can't count on outscoring everybody like that. So that's going to be a challenge and something to watch for, because there is some talent on that Washington team, particularly on the defensive line. From an offensive standpoint, they've shown an ability to run the ball. You mentioned Cyler Miles' somewhat modest stats from a passing standpoint in the Illinois game, but to your exact point, they didn't need to throw the ball a whole lot there. But from a rushing standpoint, they've got a very respectable national ranking. From a passing standpoint, that's what needs to be improved, and that's what needs to be seen. I will say, they've been relatively one-dimensional now, focusing on the rushing attack against the number one ranked Stanford defense, number one from a scoring and total yardage standpoint nationally. If Washington is one-dimensional in that game, it's going to be a long afternoon for the young quarterback.
Yeah, of course, Bishop Sankey was the first running back drafted to the NFL draft, exceptional back moving on to the NFL, but they've spread it around this year. We got Levon Coleman, 242 yards with a score. Dwayne Washington, $131. Then I see this kid, John Ross, at wide receiver. He's only caught 6 passes, but he's catching them for like 35 per with 3 touchdowns. So, yeah, some playmaking ability on offense. Stanford on offense, we touched upon it in regards to the issues in the red zone against USC, but Kevin Hogan's off to a great start at 73%, 7 touchdowns, 1 pick. Ty Montgomery's one of the best in the biz, of course, at wide receiver. Devin Kajust makes the big plays downfield as well. Your thoughts about a Stanford offense that we group think as a national perspective as being kind of a pedestrian offense, but I think the pieces are in place to be much better than that.
Agree. On paper, this should be the most explosive offense of the Harbaugh-Shaw era. You've got a third-year starter in Hogan, as you mentioned, who's really kind of picked up many of the intricacies of the offense and is now ready to be much more of that. I don't want to handcuff him or jinx the young man, but he's in a position to be more of the Andrew Luck type field commander, with the ability to switch in and out of plays and the ability to run the hurry up and call the plays himself on the fly to keep opposing defenses off balance. And I think his command is there. He's shortened up that throwing stroke a little bit on the short and intermediate passes, leading to improved accuracy. You mentioned the 73% completion rate. That's going to get it done if he can do that week in, week out throughout conference play. We could spend another hour talking about my love affair with Ty Montgomery, the human Swiss Army knife, on the Stanford football team. I'm even willing to accept the Wildcat when he's the guy, the trigger man, and running out of it. Not a huge fan otherwise, but he's such an exceptional athlete. You've just got to get the ball in his hands. Kajus is a matchup nightmare. You didn't mention Michael Rector and the speed demon he is on the outside. The running back position is completely different this year, much more running back by committee kind of an approach. They're much smaller backs versus the Tyler Gaffney and Stephon Taylor and Toby Gerhart prototype that we've enjoyed over the last 4 or 5 years. None of these guys weighs more than 210 pounds, so they're significantly smaller, but they're significantly quicker as well. Kelsey Young is blazing fast. Barry Sanders shows flashes of his dad's ability, on a weekly basis. And there are some other very, very strong, very capable guys who can carry the rock too. Notably, Ramon Wright, who was injured against Army and did not play, expected to be back for the UW game, and also Ricky Seal, who can pick up some spot duty as well. And they've all proven to be fairly capable from a pass pro standpoint. I think that was the holdup in terms of getting Barry J. Sanders into the lineup, but they've all picked up that part of the game and can provide flashes. And additionally, you've got the young true freshman Christian McCaffrey, who can absolutely fly. So the running back position, I think, is going to be okay. It's just going to look a lot different than what it's looked like in recent years.
Now, the defense, Don, looks like a situation where Stanford's gotten to a point as a program that, yeah, we notice and recognize and acknowledge the great losses on defense of very experienced, talented players that had star-studded careers, Shane Scove, and we could go on down the line.
Right.
But it seems like they're in a situation where they've built up the recruiting base and gotten to the point where A.J. Tarpley, Henry Anderson kind of lead it, and the young guys have followed suit, and they've been pretty dominant in 3 games against 2 lesser opponents, but a USC team that's obviously talented.
Absolutely. Yeah, the defense is not the problem in any way early in the 2014 season. They've been absolutely fantastic, including the USC game. That one was squarely on the offense, and in particular the problems in the red zone. The D-line has been great. David Perry back has been fantastic at the nose tackle position. Aziz Shatu has come in and played all over the line, nose tackle a little bit, on end a little bit. He's kind of the first man off the bench, if you will, from a D-line standpoint. The linebackers have been very solid, with good contributions from some of the young guys. Nor Davis got his first career interception. Those of us who followed his recruitment have been waiting for him to kind of emerge. It's really, really encouraging to see him come in and play well. Peter Kalambai has come in and made some very solid contributions as well. And most particularly, and this is what may be more different than any Stanford team I can recall in my 30-plus years worth of Stanford football fandom, the back end is really, really good. I think these kids are not discussed as much as perhaps they could or should be. A lot of people know Jordan Richards and his team captain, 30-year starter at safety. He's known nationally. But I think the other guys are a lot less heralded. And Alex Carter is as good and athletic a cornerback as Stanford has ever had. On the other side, Wayne Lyons is solid, particularly in run support as well. It's a joy to watch these guys work together, play together, great communication, and they've done a fantastic job thus far this season, and I believe they'll only get better.
All right, Don, unless the roof caves in, I would expect that you're expecting, if that makes any sense, a Stanford win in this game. They're a decided favorite. Washington's a capable team, but at the same time, Stanford's a little further in their development as a program, a little more rock solid on defense.
I think that's exactly right. I think the challenge UW is going to have, the defense is a little bit suspect against quality offensive competition, and with 10 days, almost 2 weeks to get ready for the Washington game, given the bye week this weekend. It's going to be, I expect a good offensive game plan from the Stanford coaching staff. I think the Washington defense is going to struggle a little bit to keep points off the scoreboard from the Stanford side. And this is clearly going to be the best defense of the 4 teams they will have played at this point. It's going to be a huge step up in competition for UW on the defensive side of the football, and I do expect the Stanford defense to play well enough to pull out a win this coming week.
All right, very good. So we got Mr. Donald King of Last Word on Sports. Check out that site. It's got some great insight into college football in particular, and really sports across the board. So you can check out several categories if you're into the NFL or the Major League Baseball pennant races. And they've even seen themselves fit to include some of my videos as well. So I don't know if that's a good thing necessarily, but Don, we appreciate your time and your insight, and again, for allowing me to post some of my videos as well.
No problem, Mark. Glad to have the content on the site. You have a great day. Have a great rest of the week.